Back to Uncovering History with Nikki All Smiles. I hope you guys are having a great day. And today we're going to be discussing Daniel 2. We'll be talking about a really cool image that I found. This is the classical image that you see of the statue depicting the prophecy that Daniel saw. I'm sorry, that the King Nebuchadnezzar saw, and Daniel's interpretation. Now, the map that I'll be showing is from a 1585 collection. It was done by Lorenz Faust. It's called the Anatomia Statue Dianalis, which is how they say Dianalis is, I think, Danielis is how they say Daniel in Spanish during that time. This is from a classical interpretation. So we're gonna first, I'm just into it. So I want to give you guys a full view. So this is the image. It is very cool. They have some things that they spoke about the image, but I just wanted to show you. We're going to get into it here. I won't keep you long, but I just wanted to show you this. And here we go. So at first glance, it's a man in armor, right? He's holding a sword with there's like names and a little bit of animals and some circles here, labels all over them, which you do see here, which is talking about dream, right? It's talking about what King Nebuchadnezzar saw. So it is a visual time map. It's a memory, like basically a memory device. If during the classical period where they would be telling Bible stories, a lot of times people couldn't read. So images and etchings were a great way for people to understand biblical stories. So I thought, why not share it with you guys today? I know that you're used to seeing the other version of the map that I showed you previously, but what I want to do next is just go over, just walk through it, and just take a few minutes and as a whole, right? Not just like breaking it down, but like just kind of going over what we see here and just like take a little journey from the top to the bottom. Also, we'll see the animals that are mentioned all the way down to the feet. And the feet are very interesting. If you look here, there is some really interesting things that we can see in the feet already. So yeah, we'll be going through that here in a moment. But I wanted to just go into the interpretation that we see here. And then, of course, I'll drop some context, the usual Daniel 2 interpretation, and then how Faust's version flips or enriches it, right? So overall, so the overall impression and the armor stance, right? So the statue starts with the armor in full metal garb, wielding a long sword or staff, depending on your print. You may have this one is showing looks like a sword staff to me, but it's not sure what this actually is. Is it a sword? I would think that would be some sort of a staff, right? But anyway, that tells you right away this is not like a gentle allegory. It's about power, this whole image, like with the metal and all that. It talks about conquest and lineage. It's classical, right? The plates, the curves, etc. The poise also is interesting. It's upright, authoritative, right? It's also the figure is standing in a like a guarding status or stature, which like he's guarding history itself, quite honestly. So yeah, so we'll just take a moment. I'll let your eyes here just wander. Look at the animals on the sides, the circles, and then let me just see here. This is very, very interesting. There's also some things here. We can't really see what those say. Soul, I'm not sure what that says there. Let's see here. Also here, that what is that? It's like supposed to be depicting the world here. And then very, very interesting. So yeah, this is something being burnt there. And there is a tree, which is significant. Okay, and then if you look down here, there's names that are written on the chest area. What does that say at the top here? Monarchia der Midden. Not sure what that is about. Let's see. Okay. So, and it's like very busy, right? There's like a lot going on here. Like it's a very interesting piece. And then again, this is not decoration. These are very intentional things that were put on to. So basically, because many people learn Bible stories through visual images, engravings, like engravings, also like they did wood cutting, stained glass. This piece, it's doing exactly that, right? It's telling a story through this etching, and that's how they interpreted stories back then. So you don't just read like the names, you see the narrative, right? Because there's actually a point to them actually listing these things that way. So let's see here. I'm just gonna look here, and it looks like I'm just gonna go back up here really quick just to look at this. Uh, so yeah, so basically the right and left flanking the statue that we see here, there's two at the top and then there's two at the bottom. These two that are flanking the actual statue, they are like they're not like they're actually like zodiacs, like like embellishments, like or emblematic things of the beast. Those side images, they're not extras, but they're part of like decoding the actual image, right? And I'm sorry, I'm just getting a little bit jumbled up trying to explain it to you, but they they relate more to the beast that's depicted in the image, right? From Daniel's other visions, like the lion, the bear, the leopard, right? They act like they're like annotations, like to remind you that this is part of the statue, it's helping you to comprehend that beast, right? So the circles, like they're actually they're called rondelles. They contain symbolic animal coat of arms too. If you can see that they have like different sort of coat of arms that are mentioned. Let me just see. Let me see where's some. Is this the? Let me see if it shows it at the top here. Okay, so yeah, so this one here and this is the top left. So, for example, a lion could be tied to Babylon, right? A bear, Media, Persia, etc. They're all tied to different kingdoms. If there's a goat or a leopard, that's hinting at Greece. So, different. If there's an eagle, also that's like or something fragmented, that could be about Rome or its divisions. So, different things in the image actually speak to different parts of the actual dream or prophet's prophetic dream. So let's see here, just so I can let's see. All right, so I wanted to look at the chest, the names on the chest. So if we look here, just so that we can get a little bit more of an explanation here. So now that we're looking here at the chest and the torso area, on the chest, the upper body part, you'll see like blocks of names. Um, you see them here at the top, also on the crown. Um, they're like in these columns, right? And they're like in areas where different organs would be. So you can see that depicted here. Like they represent different parts of the body, which what Faust was doing is he was mapping like names of kings and also speaking to their power structures, right? The rulers that were part of this particular body. So he also implemented some of those things about strength and, you know, their power during that time. So the chest is heavy, right? It puts the heart of the version. So this basically is what he's trying to convey. He puts more of a central or pivotal rulers there, like in the chest area, which is like the texture of the armor. It changes a bit, and like the ribs, all those things are intentional. Um, it actually it's like to help to where you see the division. It's actually, if you can see on the image, where there's a column on the right and there's a column on the left, and then you see the breaking of it here in the middle. And this actually speaks to those different kings during that time. So let's just see here. Think I can make out any other names. I see Darvin's or Dariz. Not sure what that says. I wish we could speak this Spanish. Let's see here. Yeah, no. So, but anyway, when you talk about this this actual, or when you look at this actual area here, um Faust, he kind of clumps key rulers of dynasties. Um, they're not just like he's like putting them together, and they're strapped to the statue. The body is basically it's like a map of that time. So I just want to pause for a moment and look at these armor plates that you see here. So let me just look down here, and this is a very interesting because there are some depictions on the side. What does that say? Nom Septi Judaea. The scepter of Judah. Not sure if that's what it says. I don't want to. If someone knows what that means, please tell me in the comments. That would be really cool. So let's see. So what it is saying here is though the chess and the transition zone between the early and mid empire. So from the chess area to the mid area, it talks about see here on the belt line it's talking about the breaking of the empires, or the transition. I wouldn't say breaking, but the transition zone. As we get into, let's look at the arms. So we didn't look at the arms really much, and I don't see anything really depicted on the arms, but the arms, let me see here. The statue, like it holds a long sword, right? Which is just what we're talking about right here. And this talks about what it stands out for. Just looking at my notes here, it's the symbol of the military and royal authority. The arms is a carrier of power. And Faust, he he understood that placing names, like there's a name here listed, he knew that placing the names near like that area um would correspond to more militant rulers, right? So that's who he has depicted there. I wonder if there's one listed on this arm. No, I don't, but it looks like he's holding some sort of sword behind his back, right? um there's also like faint lines that like link these rulers to each other, but we can't see those actually in the actual image. Let me just see. I want to see if we can see if there's any names. It may be one here, but we can't really see it there. I don't see just this one here on the forearm. I'm not sure what ruler that is. Dart is D-A-R-T, Dart. Long, not sure what that says. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not fluent in that language, but I do think it's still a really cool piece to share with you today. Um, Let me just see here. So it also says here that this sword is more than a decoration. Um, of course, we mentioned that how it emphasizes instruments of conquest, and it talks about like how this would be speaking to that king or ruler's power during that time. Now, I just want to shift down here to this midsection area here, just so that we can look at what it is that is going on, because there is a lot going on here in this area. So let's just see. Um, so just see here, and these are like all of these different rulers during this time and where they are historically during this time. So if we can see, if we can make out any names. Florence Tacitus. That's very interesting. I can't see if you can make out any. I don't see any names that I can actually. Nero, I see Nero. Otto, Nerva. Okay. Uh, Constantine. I see Constantine there. Interesting. Constantine. Why would he be mentioned? Was he ruling during that time? Uh, Maybe I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but Otto the First, the Second, the Third. I have to make those out. Reich in Orient. So what does that mean? Reign in order? Reich is something, but Leo, very, very interesting. So I won't spend too much time there. Let's go down to the knees and see what we see here. So this is a very curious. So on the knees, the joints, there are two animals, right? We see the two animals there. the knees and joints are a place of movement, flex, that's how we move our bodies, things like that. That's how we are mobile, right? That's how we move. That's how things change for us, because that's what our knees do. When Faust placed these animals on the knees, he's signaling that there are turning points during this period. There's moments in history where there's power shifts, sub-rulers emerge, and then transitions happen. So as we zoom in, these animals at the knees catch my attention because they're watchers, right? At the joints of history. They're like right here at a period of time. You can't miss it. It stands out. Maybe it was representing some kingdom. So I do see some depicted here. Let me just see here. Let's see here. And this may be representing some kingdoms that kind of like bridged errors, if you want to say. Let's see here. And I wonder what animal. I wish I could look up the animals, but not sure what those are. So, but yeah, again, I'm still researching this, but I just wanted to share it with you guys. But it definitely, the placement of it just like screams meaning to me. Um, but again, like I said, the way that they depicted during this time was to tell a story, not only for the biblical context, but also for the historical meaning and powers through the lineages during that time. So walking further down the legs, they're very rich and long, and the texts are very rich and long on the legs. So Faust has maps many of the different rulers on the legs. These are more than likely tied to powerful empires, like Rome, because of course, if we look at our image here, we'll see Babylon, right, which is just the head. So we know that that's going to speak all about the Babylonians. Persia is going to be the chest. Greece is going to be that midsection. Rome is going to be the legs. So let's see how that shows up here in these legs. So very interesting. So we know who would be ruling during that time, which is Rome. So let's see here. So because the legs are foundation, the mobility and the support of the body, um, look how many names are actually packed along the shins and like this whole area, like the thighs and the shin. Like this is a very long, and they rule for a very long time. So it speaks to how long the ruling took place. Um, but then there's a transition, right, from the empire through time. So at the breaking of the knees, there's a shift, there's a change that takes place. But also you'll just see how they were constantly recording the rulers, co-rulers, divisions, all those things which are embedded in this particular text. And there was so much that was going on. Um, Let me just see here if I can see anything, and we'll get down to the feet here really quickly, but it doesn't really show me. But if you guys want this image, I will post a link to it in the video description, and you can go and zoom in and see if you can see some things yourself. And if you guys are able to like decipher some of these names, I would love to get that info. So now let's move down. We're going to move down to the toes and the feet, because that's just like the weirdest thing that I'm seeing here. But you can also see, of course, and we know, let's see here. So let's look here. So basically, the feet. In the classic Daniel version, this is a mix, right? The iron and the clay, it's mixed. It's unstable. It's a divided kingdom. So here is where Faust, he actually dramatizes that. Like the feet, they appear like pretty rigid or less rigid than the whole actual body. It looks like the toes are like they're carrying some names, and these are basically like fragmented states, smaller successions, rulers and sub-kingdoms, which are depicted here. I don't know what this is above his foot, but I don't know what that is. But then again, the feet are where stability breaks down, right? These are the toes and the names to show the diffusion of power, right? Smaller realms, divided allegiances, and then emerging successors, right? This is where Faust, it was his visual way of showing how the grand march of empires that fractured at the end, basically. So let me just see. 'Cause I did see some other things that I wanted to mention in the actual, what does that say? Can't make it out, but it does definitely break down the image here. And then again, they did have their own, and these are the beasts that were spoken about in other prophecies, which tie together because we know Revelation and Daniel go together, and it really gives us a full picture of what the prophetic timeline is actually speaking to. Um, so let me just see here. I just want to backtrack for a moment. So let me just go back to it. So just for a moment. So the animals and the circles on the sides and knees, they now make a lot more sense to me because, of course, we know that there's beasts that are mentioned in the actual prophecy of the prophetic timeline as a whole. So we see that they're referencing imagery from Daniel, like the lion, the bear, etc. Right? So labeling the parts correspond to which empire. So the circles, it echoes emblematic beasts, right? Or coat of arms reinforcing connection. So that's basically how they're tying that in, like the strength of this kingdom tied into this actual figure here. So as you view the lions and bears, just remember um these are not like decorations, but they're reminders. Isaiah, Daniel, medieval exegesis, all merging visual as a textual memory, because that's how they learned during that time. Um, and then let me just see if I can pull up any other information here. All right, so just to point out a few things here. So maybe some rulers' names aren't duplicated or duplicated on the image, which I see here that I did notice that there was this name Monarchia was mentioned here, but then it was also mentioned up here at the top. So sometimes these have like um, overlapping names of rulers and things like that. And that tells you that Faust saw contested lineage. So he saw things that were not always as it seemed. Actually, I'm seeing it here in the middle too, Monarchia, which is actually his depiction of like this is where this lineage started. So you can see Monarchia the second, Monarchia the third, and then Monarchia the fourth. So these are succession lines that we're seeing depicted in the image. Also, there are some text boxes that run sideways and vertical, which we're seeing some of these. Let me just see here. We're at to see the so yeah, so there's some text boxes that we see on the sides um, that show different parts that explain like the breaking up of the reins and the parallel of the branches too. It kind of like points to different things in the actual image. The armor style, it shifts across different dynasties where they change, which we understand that. But I love the way that they took the how they like juxtaposition of the animal symbolism and then mapping of the organs, like where these things are actually strong or weak at, or these actual kingdoms, which is kind of like we see in the overarching view of the actual Daniel statue. But this kind of breaks down the people that were more involved during that time, also through their lineages too, and how that ties into the actual prophecy. So I just love that. Okay. So if we just take like a second to pause and trace the map from the head to the chest, the legs, and feet, we can just see which dynasties paths cross and how many lines, but like how many lines have like crossed over each other. Because an image is kind of blurry, we can't really tell, but we do know who they are in the prophetic timeline, and how Daniel's image, which we have here, um, actually breaks down. So we know this head is Babylon, right? That's from B605 BC to 539. So we got Babylon, Persia, Greece, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and then the feet of iron and clay. So I just want to see here. So we have that Babylon is the head, and we can see that depicted here. Let me just see. So I just want to pull back and just like reflect a little bit about how this engraving is not just a biblical illustration. It's like a Renaissance memory machine, right? So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. So Faust, he's taking Daniel's prophecy and layering it in genealogies. He has visual coding, beasts, organs, lines, all of these different things, like just making you see the history. Like he's saying, world empires and deep bodies, they live, they move, they fracture. And this is just like a timeline of that in in the form of a actual statue. And I kind of think that's what um the image that King Nebuchadnezzar saw, but this is like they were kind of what was it? Not monitor, making it more modern, right? A more modern depiction during that time of what it is that was going on in their space. Um, so basically, from many of the 16th century reading biblical prophecy, these things happen like through images, right? There are diagrams, etchings, and things like that. I know I was kind of over the place in this video, but again, a piece like this, it teaches us to invoke our memory through different images through time, and it helps us to see more in depth about what was really taking place. So when you see an image like this, it gives you more of a space to look a little bit deeper, um, and see these empires through time, like encoded in the human body. So I thought it was really cool. I'm still going to be looking over the picture. I'm going to see if I can pull up some of these names and see what these families were. Again, we do know through prophecy, like Medo-Persia, we know Babylon and Greece, Medo-Persia, Rome, and then the mixing of the clay and iron. So we do know what these kingdoms are, but I just want to be able to see who a little bit more of these people were. So we'll be looking at that in the future. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Again, guys, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I will post a link to this actual image in the description. And if you'd like to see more videos like this where we go through some of these older maps and biblical timelines, I think it'll be a really cool little series to share with you guys. And I want to say thank you again, and God bless.